Okay, so you provide pretty much free emotional wellness classes for African American men. Why do you feel the need to focus on African American men?
So this is yes, this is a new project for me actually, but most of my career has been with black boys and black men, and so I've spent over 20 years working with that population. I started my career as a school psychologist. Initially, that wasn't my plan, but my college advisor, said, "Hey, you really should consider this area because there's a disproportionate number of black boys being referred for special education services, and a school psychologist role is to intercept some of those referrals if they're not appropriate and redirect them and help teachers to learn more ways that they can address the issues that those children may be having in the classroom, as opposed to sending them to a classroom that may not be appropriate for them. So there's nothing wrong with special education services, but if it's something that you don't need, it could have a negative impact on you because it could change the trajectory of your life. So back in 98, I started working with black boys because of that reason, that the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, had um, noted that this disproportionate number of referrals was happening across the country. And yeah, it was because the teachers didn't really feel like they had the resources to help, or the knowledge to be able to help those particular children. And now there are a lot more supports in the classroom and outside of the classroom that don't rise to the level of special education support. So from there, I worked with military, which was primarily black men. I've worked in psychiatric hospital forensics, particularly, and that's primarily been black men. And so just in February, I started offering these classes in my community. And it's something that's been in the works for about a year, but we finally were able to implement the first class in February. I had about 11, I believe, 10 or 11 people that attended. And I think it's really important for that population for several reasons. First of all, the things that I mentioned initially and that we were just talking about as barriers, the stigma. Um, there's a stigma in general about receiving mental health treatment. There's definitely a stigma for men, and for black men particularly, there's probably even more of a negative stigma associated with it. Also, black men in the U.S. are marginalized in this country, and oftentimes devalued, just to be quite frank. And so they're more likely to experience stressors or traumas and things that maybe other people don't experience. So there's a higher need for them to receive mental health treatment, but they may not recognize that they need it, or the things that they're experiencing may be perceived as just being the norm because that's all they know, or that's all the people around them know, having those type of stressors. So I started out with just the basic education about what stress is, how to assess it, how to manage it with some basic strategies. So I'm really excited about doing the next class, hopefully next month. So yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So here's my take on it, and I'm just a regular dude. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist or anything like that. This is just Larry. I don't disagree with focusing on black men and black boys. I don't disagree with that because I just think that you're right. There's a lot of pressure on a black male in this in this country. Actually, there's a lot of pressure, and so rightfully so. The focus needs to be on, and I think we all need help on some level at some point. But also, what makes me think that way is also even when you think about the more so when you think about the black women. I've always believed this, and some people might not like me saying this, but I've women, the black women, I know they need the help too, but I've always seen the black woman is like the strongest group of people I know, right? Just because I've seen my mother, my grandmother, and just other black women, and there are some strong individuals, and not saying that they don't need help. I'm not saying that at all,
Mhm.
but I understand why the focus needs to be on the black men because the black women are strong. And again, I'm not saying that they don't need help, but they are strong. And some people might disagree. Some guys might, send me some hate mail for saying
Yeah,
all this. But the black woman is strong, and and so I know my black women that's listening will agree with me because a black woman is strong. I'm just laying that out there flat out. And so our men definitely need that focus so we can, because we deal with a lot. And also it's because I think women tend to talk more, and women they talk to their friends, and so that's therapeutic. Women have a bunch of girlfriends, and they can talk and get things out. Men don't really talk like that to each other, to their friends. So they do have a more need to, you know, see a therapist, and because they don't talk like that, so they need a professional to pull those things out of them so they can get to talking. You know.
yeah, right. Yeah, I agree. Black women are definitely strong. Also, that can be a barrier, that identity, that black girl magic myth that I call it, because it it can make the person feel like if they do show any signs of needing support or help, that that's weakness. But shifting back to the black man, I think oftentimes black women are very resourceful. We see a problem, encounter a problem, and we're like, okay, what needs to be done? Boom, and we're taking steps, in that direction to try to resolve it. And obviously, that's a generalization, but I, like you, have observed many black women take action in that way, and I like to think that I'm one of those who does that also. And I've also seen many black women um, be sort of the cheerleader or the support for black men, to help to get them moving in a certain direction. And so they I feel like oftentimes that black men are sort of lost in this society, overlooked. Their needs are overlooked, and obviously, like I said before, it is just, it's not cool to show any vulnerability. Right? It's, you can show anger, and men are not socialized to express really many or any other emotions besides anger. That's the one thing that's appropriate, but there's such a wide range of emotions that need to be expressed. And as you said, many times men in general, and particularly African American men, they're not going to have that conversation to really try to sort things out in that way. And I don't necessarily think that you always have to talk things out. There are different ways of um, there are different types of treatment. There are different modalities that don't always involve just strictly just talk. And that's something that I've had to learn over time throughout my career, particularly when working with Marines, that they generally are not eager to sit down and just talk about their feelings. So there are different modalities that involve movement or involve processing the information in a different way. So I just think it's important to zoom in on that population and provide as much support as possible, and find unique ways to do it, not necessarily just through therapy, but teaching them how to have these conversations with each other so that they have that support in the community. There are programs where people are going out in places where Black men frequent, right? Sport, where there are sporting events going on, or there are barbershops or whatever. People are going out to those places to reach out to Black men in that way, so that it doesn't feel so intimidating, right? Going to a place where they feel comfortable talking, or just feel comfortable even listening to that information, because sometimes people, they don't even want people to know that they're like participating in the audience. Right.
Yeah, and I think it's because of and I'm not gonna lie, I'm guilty of this myself. It is because as men, and this is probably all men, it's probably all men, white, black, whatever. Men, we do not like for people to know that we don't know what we're doing, or we don't know what we're doing, or we don't know what's going on, or like my son, my 12-year-old son, he, if he doesn't know something, he does not like for you to know that he don't know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. Like he like, I know what I'm doing. I'm like, no, you need to read the directions. No, I got it. And so that's just men. We just don't because we're natural leaders or whatever, and we don't really want people to know that we're failing in this area or whatever. That's why men will sit there, and marriage can be just going down the drain, and they won't do anything because they're just afraid to let everybody know that your marriage is failing. So, and then you lose the whole marriage because you was just afraid to even just let a therapist know that you don't know what you're doing. So that's our problem as men.